Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble. I am super excited. I always say I'm super excited, but I am really excited because I got to bring my good friend and somebody who works really closely with us, Travis King. He's been a huge supporter and just a really awesome person in the community space, just a really down-to-earth, genuine person in the world of land investing. And he's going to be coming on to talk about really the secrets to accelerate a land investing business, really the kind of things that you should go through so you can save yourself the headache, the time, the money, really dropping gems on this episode here. But before that, I've got something brand new to share with you guys. We've been on a mission to help land investors get scaled, get systemized, and that's really what I'm trying to do here. That is the whole movement I'm trying to create, that you can run your business efficiently, you can buy back your time, and that is, that drives everything behind what we build here at Pebble. And so something that I've recently launched here, it's called the Dirt Hacker Challenge. It is a 5-day challenge where you're working with me and my team members across 5 days consecutively. There is homework, there's working sessions, breakout groups, and basically what you're coming out of with this challenge is, we're not talking about strategy. Frankly, I don't care about strategy. That's what this podcast is all about. What I care about is, do you have the right strategy that you're testing? Do you have your system built like a machine? So we're really spending the time across 5 days to make sure you build a lead intake machine, to run it like a system, to run it as most efficiently as possible, and to treat your land investing like a real business. This is a hands-on, get your hands dirty, working with me on building out your SOPs, building out your stages, building out your automations, talking about things like split testing and optimizing. Really, again, really the A to Z of actually finally getting leads in and not worrying about things falling through the crack. It is a full-on machine that we're building together at the Dirt Hacker Challenge. So if you are interested, I only run this once a month. This is live. Head over to dirthackerchallenge.com and join me there on the upcoming session here to really get systemized and build a machine to run your land investing business and buy back time and build freedom in your business. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this episode here with Travis King. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here. I've got a returning guest, Travis King. How are you doing?
Good, Jesse. One of my favorite places to be. So glad to be here. Thanks.
Well, you're one of my favorite guests on the show, and obviously as a person as well. But Travis, you've got a lot of knowledge in the space of land. I think that's already a given. And so I want to bring you on this show here to talk about, you've helped a lot of people in the land investing space. And I actually talk about this sometimes to people. Like Travis, would go out of his way and explain a lot of things for people and just give. And that just comes out of the confidence in your experience and what you've learned. And because now you're on this other end of the spectrum, you can really look back and see what the path looks like. I wanted you to come on here to share with us, if somebody wants to get into land and wants to accelerate things and move things as quickly as possible, what are, we're just going to hit the points here. What do people have to sort of know or go through what do people have to go through to actually sort of accelerate and get up to speed as soon as possible? Because at the end of the day, we've only got so much time here. We don't want to waste time, and we want to get things up and running. I think this is the truth for everybody. And so can you talk a little bit as to some of the things that you would say that people need to go through in order to sort of accelerate their land business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of lay them out like, and I have lots of them, but it's not a 3 hour show, right? So we'll focus on kind of like the ones that I think are probably more appropriate for the beginning of somebody's journey and I'll kind of call them secrets here. You could consider them truths, in my opinion, in that at one point they were kind of like assumptions, that I had. And then I
Yes.
would, as we would grow and scale and kind of push past pain points, I would make these assumptions and then I would test things and then I'd find them to be true or not true, right? So these are kind of, just going to share with you like 6 truths or 6 secrets that'll really help people accelerate their success. Because a lot of people, you can achieve your goal or you can get there, but what if you could get there in half the time, right?
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. So combined, my wife and I worked the business together, have from the start. We're
Yep.
approaching a decade, right, of running a land business together. So the amount of man hours we've put into it and the trial and error and the mistakes we've made, if I can kind of distill that and
Yeah.
share those. So yeah, I think sharing some accelerators can really help people know what they should focus on and what matters and what doesn't early on, right?
It's so funny. I know you're talking about shaving off time, but it's not even just time. It's the money that you save, the frustration, and also the derailment of, not finding success quick enough. A lot of us lose our momentum, and it simply
Yeah.
fizzles out. I don't know how many people I've spoken to who want to get started in land literally fizzle out because they wanted to sort of, I mean, they're sort of just trying to figure it out on their own. So I appreciate you bringing in these things here to talk about. So let's go from the top of the list here, Travis. Let's start with the first one.
Yeah, well, I would say secret number one is that you want to replicate before you iterate. Okay. And what I mean by that is we have a tendency, at least I found that I did, and I thought maybe it was just me, but I became aware once I started coaching others that it wasn't just me, that everybody does this where you get, let's say you're reviewing properties, you start to get some leads that come back, and then you're like, oh, wow, this one's like, this one's near the Grand Canyon, that maybe this would be cool to like, to create a glamping site, and maybe do Airbnb, right? Like I've always had an interest in glamping and camping and Airbnb. This would be perfect. Like maybe I'll do that, right? Because that excites you more than just flipping dirt. Okay. So what I would say is like down the road, you could get cute, you can iterate, you can weave in whatever you're passionate about into the land business. You know what I mean? There's so many different niches within the asset class of land itself. But when you're starting out, the objective is stacking cash, right? In my opinion, the objective the focus should be stacking as much cash as possible on the front end.
Mm.
One, it gives you not just proof of concept, and it gives your spouse, your partner, your family, yourself, like
Oh yeah.
it gives buy-in, right, to anybody else, and then also for you, it removes that like that distance from exploring and awareness of a new thing like land flipping to actually cashing checks, right? So you can lose a lot of motivation between that awareness of it and then actually your first deal. Okay. So it's so interesting. All you've got to do is get to that first deal, and then you get some traction, you get some momentum, but it's easy early on to also like get off track, right? And start going, okay, I'm going to go this route. I'm going to do that. I love people that niche down, but I find the people that are like running a sustainably successful business, they niched later. Like all they do is subdivide now, but they didn't start out. You know what I mean? The first 3 months, that wasn't like their
Yeah.
entry point. Or I know people that's what they do is the Airbnb model, right, for land,
Yeah.
but they didn't do that on their second deal. So what I would say is like just follow a proven system. Be what I call a copycat millionaire, right? Like don't try to go create your own app or software or something fancy, right? Like just swipe somebody else's system, swipe somebody else's business model that works, stack as much cash as possible. Then if you want to get creative or iterate at that time, You're not
Yeah.
having to bootstrap that, that Airbnb or that glamping thing. You're not bootstrapping it with credit cards. You're playing with house money. You've stacked enough cash that
Yeah.
you can iterate at that point.
I love what you said, and I think this might have gone over a lot of people. The buy-in. I speak to a lot of. If you haven't heard my podcast, I've spoken to couples and people who are trying to get their, spouses to buy into it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in there. And when you can get the confidence and the backing of your partner, your family, this is huge because you're coming into running your own business. And this is literally a business that you're stepping into.
Yeah.
Don't be fooled. It is a real thing, and it takes time. And having that buy-in is so important. I love what you said to prove the concept really. And I mean, essentially, I would word it what you just said is build the foundation for this and prove the concept here. And then get niche down or get cute as he said. I
Yeah.
love that one. I love that one. All right, let's go to the next one, Travis. What would you say is another thing people should have down here as they sort of start accelerating their business?
Okay. I'd say accelerator or secret number two is go after bigger deals immediately. Okay.
Wow.
We're this is something that proof of concept we just talked about. That's how do you prove out that concept? Well, sometimes when you're new, the idea is like, not only are you worried about does this work, the bigger concern is like, I don't want to lose money. And I can still
Yeah.
recall being in that state of mind where it's not like, can I make money with this, but like, how do I just not lose money? Like, if I do this, I just want to break even, with all the
Right.
expenses. So, what I see is everybody for that proof of either for proof of concept or because they're limited by their own bank account and their own means, they start doing small deals. Okay.
Yeah.
You start
Yeah.
doing small deals. And the problem with that is you do get some quick wins. Okay. So I call these fruit snacks when I'm coaching people. Cause when you're doing small deals and you go through these other educational programs and they focus on like buying for $1,000, selling for 4,000, like when you're new and just starting, it's exciting, until you do the math on what you spend on a campaign and your man hours and time. Right. And then you realize, but you got to win. Like mentally, you think you had a win. I call this
Yeah.
like these fruit snacks because it's like when you're on a road trip with your kids, right? And they're hungry and you're just like, here, take a fruit snack, right? like 30 minutes down the road, they're hungry again. And like
Yeah.
right? Like they're
Yeah.
hungry again and here you are again. But like it bought you some time and you tricked yourself. You felt like you ate something. Well, you didn't eat a meal, right? That's like a sugary fruit snack. That's kind of what these super small deals are. Like they get people that emotional, that early win, but it's kind of a disservice because that business model of a high volume, a high number of small deals really is a self-employment trap. When you start to look at the man hours and the cost, as mailing costs go up, postage goes up, soft like everything, right? We're in an
Yeah.
inflationary period. Everything's going up right now. Okay. So if you're going to stick a stamp on something and send it, why wouldn't you target $100,000 property instead of a $10,000? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So when you front load your career with bigger deals, early on, it gives you these outsized returns. Okay. And those outsized returns allow you to really stack like a cash preserve. And you
Yeah.
now can use that cash reserve as your operating capital. Okay, so instead of using your own savings account or your own credit cards or whatever you are using, to go in the red, you're now kind of playing with house money immediately. That's where
Yeah.
you want to be. So you want to start out doing bigger deals so that you can kind of front load your career with that versus starting really small, which I did, right? Starting really small and trying to build this big snowball. It takes a long time to do, and it feels a lot more like self-employment than entrepreneurship, right? So I tell people go after big deals immediately, and we'll talk about later about how you do that, right? But you really like making that shift, like thinking that through, and instead of arriving at that conclusion 2+ years into the business, if I can just convince people to start there,
Yeah.
they can do what I've done in a third the time, right?
So I'm sure a lot of people are listening right now. They are probably thinking, "Oh, Travis just said this, and I am part of a existing program, and we're doing desert lots." And great. Well, Travis told me to do this. How should somebody like what would be the game plan to get themselves out of those desert lots and working those sort of small little fruit snacks? What's sort of the easiest thing would suggest that how they should transition out of that?
Yeah, well, first I'd start with so I don't want to use like the desert like derogatory, because I even do like this little training on one of these desert squares is not like the other. Okay, because we have these two areas. I live in Arizona. We have these two counties that are about 3 hours apart, and there's two
Yeah.
different subdivisions. And in one of them, these 1 acre lots sell for about $7,000. Okay, and this other subdivision, it's in northern Arizona, Coconino County. You come down to Maricopa County, closer to Phoenix, and we have this subdivision where the same size 1 acre desert squares sell for about $110,000. Okay. So when we say desert square, I don't use that like derogatory. It's more like the price point at which we're at, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
discriminate if whether it's a beautiful lakeside lot or an ugly desert square. If the
Yeah.
desert square is worth 100 grand, I'm okay flipping it.
Yeah.
The thing you want to do is you want to be in the right markets, okay? Not in like and that kind of leads into what I would call accelerator number three, okay? Or secret number three is you want to target competitive areas,
Mm.
okay? And that sounds, when I say that, it sounds counterintuitive,
Yeah.
it sounds counterintuitive. So there's a difference, like clarifying, there's a difference between competitive and saturated. All right. You know what I mean? So there's a difference, because when I say competitive, people are like, what? I don't want to go where everybody else already is.
Mm.
Well, I don't mean that. When I say competitive, I don't mean go to Costilla County and target 5 acre lots, okay, where everybody else is, right? And the values are 10,000 or below. When I
Right.
say competitive, I mean like growing and emerging markets. Like, where are people moving? You know, let's talk about the big metro cities in Texas, right? Any county within 75 miles of Dallas, of Houston, of Austin, right? Like those counties like that. Go to Tampa, go to Florida, right? Like,
Yeah.
so competitive areas where people are moving to, and there's low days on market. And what that means now, that sounds counterintuitive, because people go, well, if it's competitive, it's going to take more mail and a higher offer price to get a deal. Yes, absolutely. And the reason is because the flip side of the coin is when you're listing it on the disposition side, days on market is so much lower. The problem
Mm.
is a lot of people focus on the acquisition of buying the land at the discount, right? Like buying land at a discount. Well, I could make a course all day long. In 50 states, we could buy land at a discount. But if that's fine, if like you're buying and holding, but if you're a flipper and you need to realize that profit, it's not a flip until you sell it, right? On
Right.
the disposition side, and that's where the strength of the market comes in. So that's where you actually want to be operating in competitive markets, because you're going to be experiencing way less days on market, okay? And then that's going to bring money back into the business quicker. But it's one of those things when people get started, it's kind of like clarifying between competitive market and a saturated
Saturate. I love that.
saturated market.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I hope you guys are taking notes. Travis is just dropping all sorts of information here. Let's go on to the next one here. We talked about targeting, competitive areas. What's the next secret you've got on the list here for us?
So secret number four, accelerator number four would be, and it kind of ties in or circles back, right, and expands on that, going after bigger deals. It's easy to say when you go, okay, you've been doing this 10 years. Sure, you can go after bigger deals, right? You've kind of built
Right.
up a war chest, but I'm just starting. I can't go after $200,000 deals, right? When I'm just starting. Well,
Right.
accelerator number four is leverage other people's money for your property acquisition.
Mm.
Um, the reason, and this was something that it took me a long time not to realize this. It took me a while to realize it, but also when I started almost a decade ago, it wasn't as common. There weren't all these capital
Right.
partner funding companies, right? When we approached hard money lenders, they were doing houses, and there's that stigma of land. Okay, so it wasn't even really like an option. There weren't a bunch of like formal entities funding land deals. Okay, so we kind of had to like build ours up, and then build a track record, and then create a little pitch deck and try to convince people to give us money. But fortunately, right nowadays you don't have to do that. There's dozens and dozens of sources of capital and deal funders like in the land space. Okay, so what I would say is if you start out now, when you get through your first year of land investing or your second year, it doesn't matter. If you start to look at your QuickBooks or whatever you're using at your expenses, okay, if you stack rank your expenses, almost everybody I've ever reviewed their business with, the number one cost is property acquisition, right?
Mhm.
Buying the properties. Okay, that's the number one cost, and it's the number one thing that hamstrings people. Because when we buy this property, whether it's 30,000 or 300,000, doesn't matter. When we buy it, we tie up so much capital,
Yeah.
right? And then we've got to wait for a 30-day close and title, and then we've got to list it, and we might have to wait 4 months or more to sell it, and then
Yeah.
then we've got a 30-day close, right, on title so it takes so long to bring the money back in when you're going after bigger deals that people struggle to transition from small deals to big deals, because they're waiting so long to bring that money back in. So when you leverage other people's money, really what it does is it's a huge accelerator because you find the deal, right? You find the capital partner,
Yeah.
you get it funded, and then you move on to the next deal, and you can focus on acquisitions and more deals while that thing is listed and in dispositions, okay? And you're not tying up your own capital and hamstringing yourself. So this is really one of those things where once you realize this and you understand this, whether you just need to think through it or throw it on a spreadsheet, it's incredible. It really allows you to scale at a rate that you never
Yes.
could.
Yeah.
So when
You know,
when they hear like funding, they go, well, okay, so I've got to split the deal. So now I've got to do twice as many deals. And it's like,
yeah.
well, no, you're doing deals that are 4x or 10x the size of
Mhm.
your normal deals. Okay.
Mhm.
So you're okay with splitting the deal. You're doing probably able to do more deals and bigger deals. So the math
Yeah.
really works out. And we took it a step farther. Like when I realized kind of this power of other people's money, our formula, our recipe, and this doesn't work for everybody because it's all about your risk tolerance, right? But we still
Yeah.
use today, we use 0% business credit cards to run our marketing side. All of our direct mail, all of our marketing. So we're
Yeah.
essentially using
Yeah.
somebody else's money, right, to fund our campaigns. And then you use other people's money to fund your property acquisition. I don't want to encourage people
Travis.
to get in credit card debt or use credit cards, but I'm just saying, like, the power of other people's money,
Yeah.
especially if you just use it for property acquisition, that's going to free up all that capital and allow you to spend it on marketing. And if you can plow that into marketing, you don't have to feel like you need to take or accept the average deals. You can top grade and only pick the slam dunks.
I hear a lot of people who are, correct me if I'm wrong, nervous to work with lenders or funders. Um, and it does become sort of a resisting point. I mean, I think it comes down to clarity and people, addressing some of those things that people are a little bit nervous about. And I don't know if you get a chance to speak to other people who might be nervous to use a lender. I know that you guys have a funding portion to your business as well. But what do you typically sort of let them know to, and how you guys operate and build sort of clarity for the investors themselves?
Yeah, well, I think and I recall being in that position too, where there's, even
Yeah.
when you have some awareness, right? You're aware of these resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of it's like you need clarification, or it's daunting, or it's just foreign, right? So that's where, like,
Yeah.
with a lot of the coaching I do, you build trust, like, so it's only natural for somebody that their first thing they go,
Mm.
hey, how about you fund my deal, right? So like,
Yeah.
even the funding part of, there's a lot of synergy, and it's really organic because we've already got that trust. And
Yeah.
that's a real battle. Like, for somebody even starting out a capital company, there's hedge funds that they try to come into this space, like, it's dumb money, meaning like they don't understand how to review the property, the deal, right? Like, there's deals that we'll look at and we'll say, you know what, we can't fund this one, but this one will still make sense for you. Or we'll look at it and
I,
say, you know what, we're not going to fund this, but I think we're protecting you from a bad acquisition. Like, here's the problems we see with this. So
yeah.
like, it's, so that's
I
really
think
part of
there's so
it.
much value in that alone, and I was going to bring that up where you almost have in a way. There's someone sort of giving you advice, or acting as an advisor on that property itself. Now, I know that's, you know, probably time consuming for the lender themselves, but it's nice to have somebody to be able to, look after their back as well, and mention that. I don't know what your process is like with you guys, but I'm sure there's huge value, especially for somebody who's getting started and wants to actually accelerate their land business.
Well, yeah, and when I tell
Um,
people that, like I say, like, yes, we do have a funding company, but guess what? It's like we don't have 100 million bucks, sitting around, so I can't fund everybody's deal. So when I'm like evangelizing using other people's money, it's not lead generation for us. We're doing just fine, right? Like there's 20 other companies that do this. I just really
sure.
want people to understand, like, it doesn't have to be us. It doesn't have to be our
Yeah.
company. But once you
Yeah.
understand this, that like you're not limited yourself and hamstringing yourself by only using your own capital. What
Yeah.
happens is it just collapses time and how
Mhm.
quick you can get to that financial goal that
Yep.
that
Yep.
you're going after. But yeah, you've got to get uncomfortable, right? If it's new, you might get a couple deals rejected. You might offer too high. Like your first deal might not get approved. That's fine. Just like anything, right? You got to have thick skin, and
Mhm.
with frequency, you're going to learn people's criteria, and then once you
Mhm.
know their criteria, you'll know what to look for when you're reviewing properties.
I know you're enjoying the show episode so far, but I wanted to let you know that if you are looking to build or scale a serious land business, perhaps a 6-figure second income or eventually a 7-figure land investing empire, Travis King's company, Land Investing Mastery, has the most current and innovative education in the space. Travis goes beyond the traditional microflip that you might be familiar with and shows you how to 10x your deal size and execute on strategies like subdividing, portfolio takedowns, land sniping. We're talking 6-figure per flip strategies. If you're getting your education from someone who isn't actively investing, you're more than likely going to hit some plateaus as you try to scale. If you want to learn how to avoid the saturated red ocean markets, skip over the small stuff, and learn how to become a boss land investor, then Travis is your guy. Travis has completed nearly 1,000 coaching calls in the last 2 years that I've known him, and he has his pulse on the market. He will tell you, though, Land Investing Mastery is not a factory. They're a boutique agency built on transformational, life-changing results. You see, I'm in a really unique position, and I really mean what I've just said above. In fact, I get to speak to a lot of investors from all sorts of different education, training, coaching background out there, and I get a very good view of things from all the one-on-one demo calls that I've done. Now, you may want some social proof. Head over to pebblerei.com/Travis and check out Travis's wall of love on his testimonial page. And while you're there, you can also learn more about Travis's training programs and his exclusive mastermind. So simply head over to www.pebblerei.com/Travis for more information. That's awesome. Let's go on to the next one here, Travis. What would be the next secret or accelerator here? I like how we're using that term consistently on this episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I say, all of these, I could call them accelerators. You could call them secrets. That it's truths to me. For it's like truths in our own business,
Mm,
like assumptions that I made that I've proved out to be truths to me. So
yeah.
by me sharing these, it's just these are like lessons learned, right? We could call them that too, like lessons learned, because these are things that took me nearly a decade, right? Conclusions that took me a decade to nearly arrive at. So it's a
Yeah.
pretty distilled, I mean, it's a pretty distilled list here of things that have worked for us. So I think accelerator is true. And it feels like a secret when you come across it, right? It really does
Yep.
when you start to use it and experience your own business. But the next one, so accelerator number 5, is simple scales, fancy
Mm,
fails.
mm,
And what I mean by that is really speaking to the marketing side on outbound marketing, referencing like when we could just say mailers, right? A lot of people mail and direct mail. But as we know in the last couple of years, text message marketing, cold calling, these are new channels of marketing that they're not always new channels of marketing, but they might be new to land. And that is a lot of house investors and house wholesalers that are fluent in this language, right?
yes.
Have moved
Yes.
over and migrated over to our blue ocean. They brought with them, a lot of them, these cold calling strategies and then text messaging. So these are different channels, though. The three primary being direct mail, cold calling, text messaging. Well, sometimes when we hear new things, people that are newer, they're struggling. Maybe they're not doing great with direct mail, and they go, "Well, should I just start text messaging?" I hear a lot about text messaging. Should I just start cold calling?
Mm.
I've heard a lot about cold calling. Is that like the new thing, right?
Yeah.
And when I say simple scales and fancy fails, is what I say is what I mean is that you need to get really good at one channel before you add a second. Okay. So you don't need to be doing all three. Any one of those channels, if you get
Yeah.
good at them, you could have a high six-figure business or seven-figure business on one channel. Okay.
Right.
So, and you would have singular focus. So you don't have to add all of these. So what I would say is that the problem usually is lead generation is the first obstacle when somebody starts, like lead gen, getting leads, right? How do I get leads? How do I get my phone ringing? How do I get emails? And that starts with marketing campaigns. But what happens is that if people struggle with converting the deal, converting the lead to a deal, buying properties, whether it's on the phone, it's negotiating, whatever it is, people struggle to get those deals, even though they're getting leads in. They default to, well, maybe I need to change my approach or another method or add and the reality is it's like that you need to plug the holes in your leaky, lead conversion bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need
Mm-hmm.
to shine a spotlight on the lead conversion bucket and find those leaky holes because your problem isn't lead gen. So adding another channel of marketing is not going to fix the problem. It's just going to increase your expenses, right? So you really need to get strong at lead conversion and really have your lead conversion game tight before you start stacking on and adding
Yeah.
second and third channels of marketing. So that's where I say simple scales, fancy fails. When
Yeah.
somebody hears, just mail more, right? Or just call more. Really, it's like one channel you can scale really far before you even think about adding a second. Okay. And then you don't add that second till you're brilliant at converting.
I love that. I talk a lot about that, optimizing what you have and building and improving on what you're doing is hugely important. It's one of the things that we talk about, even with direct mailing. Split testing is something that we can easily do
Yeah.
in the system. There, these kind of things. I'm amazed with some of the results people are getting, but they hear the next sort of shiny ball or whatever it is, and they kind of get
Yeah.
distracted. Not saying that one thing doesn't work or another thing doesn't work, but I think optimizing is hugely overlooked, and you can go very very far with that. So I love that one. The simple scales, fancy fails. I love that line. All right. Well, let's. I know you've got one more here, Travis. Why don't you share with us this last one here you've got for us?
Yeah. And this is an accelerator. Secret number six, accelerator number six is that your network is your most important asset. Okay, and I'm gonna say that like second only to your mindset, and
Yeah.
we've had conversations about that, and that's a whole nother podcast. But your network, I believe, is your most important asset. Um,
Yeah.
and it took me a long time to realize that. You hear these things, hear these sayings
Mm.
like your network is
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
net
Yeah.
worth, right? You hear all this stuff and you dismiss it. And what's interesting is, I'm a big reader, big listener of audiobooks and stuff, and I consume all these billionaires' books. And you'd read these things, you'd hear these things, and they'd talk about like the level of your network and all of this, and you just kind of dismiss it, right? And then you start hearing a third, a fourth, a fifth time, and you go, okay, well, maybe there's something to this. And the whole time we were running our land business, I'd say like the first 3 years, it was just completely a solopreneur act. Like, I mean, like I thrived on being an introvert and I thrived on,
Yeah.
I don't know that I made a post. Like I read posts, I read forums, I was in communities, but I wasn't engaged and I wasn't contributing. I was kind of just like taking and extracting, and the trouble with that was I didn't grow. You know what I mean? Like I became really good at repeating the same type of deals, but I didn't have growth. I didn't have accountability. I didn't have support. I also didn't have resources. So I was kind of a slow learner to adopt this whole network thing, expanding your network. And I would have to discard and let a lot of leads go because either they came out of my market, or one would be in my market and the seller would say, hey, I've got something, down in Georgia, right?
Yeah.
And this property was in Arizona. And I'm like, oh, don't work Arizona. Sorry, not interested. Where, like now I know three guys, what I mean? That I would just send a message to and say, hey, I've got one for you, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
let me put you
Yeah.
in touch. Okay.
Yeah.
Whether it's just handing it to them in goodwill or assigning it. Okay. So that's like, you don't realize the power of that network, whether the network is like a network of agents, of title companies, of capital partners, right? Or just advanced investors, like a network. But having a community and having a network, it took me a long time to understand the power of that. Okay. And I think it's just huge. It's massive. Again, it's a huge accelerator, because if you can tap into your network, or really like crowdsource your
Yeah.
answers, right, from other people that are experienced, as long as the community that you're dialed into or the network you're in, you're able to differentiate between opinion and biases and actual like strategy and tactics. Okay. As long as you have a filter to differentiate those, man, the power of network, the power of community is huge. And it's kind of community has kind of been a byproduct of what we have been doing over here, where we've been training and
Yeah.
helping people. And I've coached people one by one at a time for years.
I mean, yes, I remember these days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at over 1,000 one-on-one coaching calls, right? 1,000 times I've fired up Zoom and helped people, right?
I,
One-on-one.
I think it's even aside from your coaching. I just remember, before you had all this structured, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about that. But even back in the day, how you just are always in the community space, giving, 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 giving. Like you have no idea if the guys are still new to land, but some of that are new. Travis has been just an integral role in a lot of people land investing journey, and the amount of uh, value just given to people out of your own time. I know that's been huge for you, but tell me a little bit more about what you guys are working on. I'd
Yeah.
love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so is the everything we've done at this point has been organic, completely
Yeah.
100% referrals. And I work with somebody and we get them results, and then they tell a buddy, they tell a friend, right? And then
Yeah.
I coach them, they get results. And then we've brought all these, so we've brought all these people into kind of our fold, right? Into the community. And right now at this point, we have, a community of over 300 people, right? Of 300 land investors. And we've built this advanced investor network. And it's just fantastic, because instead of me, counseling and helping everybody, I'm starting to see people help each other. Okay. And that's really what I wanted to facilitate. It wasn't just about putting me at the hub of this advanced investor network. It was creating absolutely, that's going to create a lot of opportunities for me and others. But it was about like, I can't scale my time. You know what I mean? I may have knowledge and distilled knowledge and can help people, but I've got the same 24 hours as everybody else,
Yeah.
So I really have got to find a way where we can all kind of like huddle up together and share and disperse this knowledge and help somebody, whether you're at the last chapter in the book or the second chapter. There's somebody, that's at the first chapter or one chapter before you that you can
Yeah.
help out. So even if you don't feel like you're an expert, you're farther along in your journey
Yeah.
probably than somebody else was. So for me, paying it forward is huge. And that's where, like, this year, Becca and I, my wife, we run all of our businesses together. We're going all in on community, and it's really, for us, it's really about like impact and fulfillment. So I quite honestly have like become desensitized to the transaction, the deal. I love deals. I'm a deal junkie, so I love to still actively invest, and I'm still doing that. But it's like when you help somebody else get their first deal or their first big deal, it kind of is like experiencing it for the first time again for you, right? Because you do
Yeah.
lose that. Although you
Yeah.
still appreciate the profit and the inbound wire, it's not the same as your first time, right? So you're getting to
Right.
experience somebody else's first time every time, hundreds of times, right? With everybody's first big deal.
I like the way
Like,
you put it.
like it's incredible for like that. It
Uh,
just energizes me to get to be around that and be in the middle of
yeah.
that. So that's really what it's about for us at this point, is like community and then impact, right? And impacting others. So up to this point, like I told you, it's been 100% organic. Well, we've kind of been like the best kept secret, in the land investing space. And really this year is for us kind of about awareness and about growth. So it's really for me about like putting myself out there a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just huddling up with all my advanced investor buddies, right? Like putting my name, myself out there just a little bit more, being a little bit more extroverted, and so that I can help more people. And really, like my goal, like, is to free people from their W-2 jobs. Like I have,
Wow.
I have empathy that I will never forget. I know the feeling of like being in a car,
Yeah.
listening to a podcast, commuting to work, being completely unfulfilled and like looking
Yeah.
for an avenue, a path that's like an escape, right? That it's like you've been through side hustles, you've been through other businesses, and I can still remember being there,
Wow.
and it's, man, like to have that feeling that there's no hope and go, I'm going to be at a 9 to 5 till I'm 65, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
feeling stuck is terrible. It's just a soul crushing feeling for anybody that has like an inner entrepreneur in them. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
So that's
Mhm.
at this point, that's my mission is, and I don't have a number, right? But I want to free as many people as I can of whether it's bronze handcuffs, you're in a blue collar job, or it's golden handcuffs, you're in some 6 figure, white collar job. Like I want to free people of their jobs. And the only way
Yeah.
I know how to do that is how I did it, right? Is through
Yeah.
land. So I'm happy to like be the land evangelist and share my message with everybody. And we're doing that this year through launching travisking.com, and kind of putting my name out there a little more than we have been to this point.
I haven't checked out travisking.com. I will definitely check that out. I'm gonna chime in here. I like literally before our call, I was so I'm in the software world. Obviously, we work on Pebble, and we build the platform to help run your land business. But I was just on a chat with somebody who was interested in learning more about my coaching program, not my own coaching program, but the program that I'm under in the software world.
Yeah.
And I never really understood the power of a network. But to add to that, really having people in your network who are like way above you really pulls you up. You are really only as good as the best person in that room.
Yeah.
And having somebody at a really high level has altered my life. Coming from this has nothing to do with real estate,
Yeah.
it's really changed my life, changed my business. So it's hugely, incredibly powerful to be a part of a group. And I was one of those people. Like I rolled my eyes, like, yeah, yeah, surround yourself with like people. And
Right.
it's taken until now. I've been a part of that coaching program for almost 2.5 years now. Both Kevin and I, my co-founder here at Pebble, and it's the people that we meet has literally just taken one person to change the trajectory of our business. The more people that you expose yourself to a network and get close in that network, and not only change the trajectory of our business, but really, I mean, the quality of our life. It's crazy. As entrepreneurs, we probably all know, how how much of a toll it can take on your physical health, your mental health, your financial health. So it's not just the things that you'll get out of, in terms of the practicality. I'm sure working with you, Travis, and I get to speak to so many of the people who work with you, and it's much more than that. I know that with any sort of network you belong to. So it's hard to see it from that side for somebody
Yeah.
who's entering into coaching or a network, but it's very easy once you've gotten in to look back and like, oh my gosh, this has been crazy.
Well, and
um
I didn't have a mentor, and I couldn't find a
right.
quality mentor. So for me, I think that's a lot of it. Is I go, I wish I had, right? Like
Yeah.
I want to do this for somebody else so they don't have to experience the stress we went through.
Yeah.
Even being like at one point like note rich and cash poor, right? Where we built our business in such a manner that we're like, is this a success? I don't know, right? I didn't have anybody to counsel me and show me those cliffs or plateaus. And you've heard the saying over and over. It's like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with. Well,
Yeah.
What I say is, I want to be the one dragging that average down, right? You know what I mean? You guys,
Yeah,
we want to
right.
be the one
Oh, I
dragging
love
that
that.
average down. Okay. So when I'm the average of the five people, so that's really what you got to look around and take inventory. It's not just about like your average, like you need to be like around people that are playing ball at a high level. Because
I
if
love,
like if you surround yourself with the best, like
yeah,
it's just osmosis. I mean, it's just going to happen. Like if you spend
yeah,
enough time with high level
yeah,
people in
yeah.
whatever your profession or industry is or whatever you're
I
pursuing,
love that.
you spend enough time with that, opportunities will the scraps will fall between their fingers. Enough opportunities will find you, and you'll just
Yeah,
absorb it. But
yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Like if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to be getting paid at that
yeah,
point for the talk, the speech, the whatever, right? But otherwise, I'm a big fan of that though, like of really surrounding yourself with what it is I think like whatever you're doing, find somebody that has done it, achieved it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And has been where you're going. And maybe their idea of success is even in alignment with yours, right? Because success
yeah,
looks different. So
yeah,
if you've got some of those shared values, you've got some things that align. Because like
yeah,
me, my idea of success, like we could go as big as we want with this. I don't want a brokerage. I don't want a brick and mortar. I want a team of 20 agents under me. To me, that's work, right? Like I'm just
right.
putting myself back in a position of work. So to some people, that might be success, but that's not my idea of success. So for me, it's about freedom, like time freedom, financial freedom.
Yeah,
But so you've got to find somebody who's gotten to that spot you want to be at, right? And then
yeah,
you either you emulate them, okay? You reverse engineer them, you emulate them, or you have them mentor you. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm a huge fan of that, and it took me a long time to arrive at that. I think it was because early on I didn't have mentors and I didn't have mastermind groups. I didn't have access to these things, so they
yeah.
operated from a place of like a cost mentality where I just saw it all as
Yes,
an expense, and I'm like, I can get
yes,
there myself. Well, yeah,
yes.
maybe you can get there in 4 years, but how much money are you missing out on by not? Why can't if you were mentored and you got there in 1 year or
Yeah,
two, right? Like if you got to making six figures like 1 or 2 years quicker, like
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard to like force feed that perspective though. Sometimes people have to just organically experience it, you know.
I know that you guys are listening and like, wow, Jesse is sure getting really enthusiastic talking about this. And let me tell you, I mean this. It was an hour ago. Somebody on Reddit messaged me. Again, I'm in the software world. He was a technical co-founder. This has nothing to do with real estate, so I'm just going to talk about this openly. But he was asking, what's the best way to learn about growing a business and the marketing side of things. Well, again, I belong to a program called SaaS Academy, and I posted there and he's like, well, it looks like another one of those guru things. I said, hop on a call
Yes.
with me. Hop on a call with me. I'll tell you exactly what I benefit and how I benefit. And when I'm saying yes to what you're saying, I can relate so much to what you're saying, Travis. Um, and again, I can only relate to that because now I'm on the other side of receiving, being part of something much higher level than I am and how it's sort of changed things for me. So I get really excited. But this was literally an hour ago that this anonymous person, I hopped on a Zoom call
Yeah.
and I was literally fanboying about how important it is to have a program or network that you're part of. So
Yeah.
before people start getting like, okay, this is a little too much, Travis. So
Yeah.
what, tell us what's the best way they can reach you and work with you. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So you can go to travisking.com or you can go to landinvestingmastery.com. And I think
yeah,
from there you'll be able to see all the different ways in which I can help you or we can help you. And I would
yeah,
say also like anytime you're looking for mentors, you're looking for anything, you're looking at programs, like vet them
yeah,
out, right? Check them out, talk to the communities, talk to other people. That's when we decided to launch like a training program, and I started counseling like course launchers and marketers. Like I'll tell you, everybody was like, launch ugly, start with a minimum viable product. Like you just get this out there. And I'm like, I can't do it. Like it's not, it's not in alignment with who I am. I'm like, it needs to be like high quality and
yeah,
its reputation here. So for me, that's the most important thing, is
yeah,
maintaining that reputation
yeah,
versus just versus just hawking courses. Okay. So what
yeah,
I would tell people is just like, yeah, it's okay to spend some time like researching and vetting, and you just don't run out and pay any guru because we said mentoring is great. It's still okay to vet, right? And trust your
Yeah.
gut and everything.
Yeah.
But what Jesse's trying to just say is like, hey, find somebody who's been where you are or where you want to be, and has
Yeah.
been where you are at some point, and
Yeah.
then tap into them, their network, their community. And it's really the fast track. It's not that you can't get there on your own. You're
That's
just
right.
like taking the fast lane, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, Travis. I get excited about this kind of stuff because, man, I think back about where I was. And anyways, I'm not going to go on any further with that. Travis, I want to thank you for coming on, always coming on wherever you are, sharing so much value. And thank you for sharing with us your 6 secrets to accelerating. Make sure you guys re-listen to these and take notes. And do check out travisking.com and landinvestingmastery.com as well. And we'll have those on our show notes. Travis, once again, I want to say thank you for coming on the show here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, everybody.
All right, see ya. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.